Every inhabited continent carries her African footprint somewhere in its bloodline. We uncover the women history left behind. Her story, our history, our legacy. This is Roots Unspoken.
This is a face carved 500 years ago, out of the same material kings were buried in, to guarantee that one woman would never be forgotten. It worked. She wasn't forgotten. She was just taken. Real women, real artifacts, real history. This is Roots Unspoken. Look at what's actually carved into this thing, because none of it is decoration. It's a resume. The crown of tiny faces circling her head are bearded Portuguese traders, the first Europeans Benin ever dealt with, shrunk down and worn like a hairpiece. That's not admiration. That's a Queen Mother telling you she took the measure of foreign power and kept it on her head as jewelry. The material itself is the other half of the message. Ivory in Benin wasn't for sale to just anyone. It was a royal monopoly reserved for the Oba and the small circle around him. Carving Idia's memorial in ivory instead of the wood or brass used for lesser nobles was the court's way of stating permanently that she belonged in that innermost circle, not the king's mother by accident of birth. A ruler in her own material. Here's a detail most people never learn. There isn't one mask. There are at least 5, carved as a set or in close succession, all pulled from Benin City in 1897, all scattered to different corners of the world within a generation. One went to the British Museum. One went to the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. One sat for decades in the Linden Museum in Stuttgart, Germany. One is in the Seattle Art Museum. And one, sold through the private art market, now belongs to a member of Qatar's royal family, on loan for public display more often than any of the museum copies. Every single one of Idia's faces has been seen, studied, and photographed by more people outside Nigeria than inside it. Not one has permanently lived in the country whose queen mother she was. The masks didn't leave Benin through trade or gift. In February 1897, a British military force burned Benin City in what colonial records politely called a Punitive Expedition, launched after an earlier British delegation was ambushed trying to force its way into the kingdom during a sacred festival. Soldiers looted the royal palace systematically. The ivories found in the Oba's private chambers, including Idia's masks, were treated as spoils of war, split among officers, shipped to London, and sold to cover the cost of the expedition itself. Auction houses and private dealers moved them into the international art market over the following decades, which is exactly how one Queen Mother's memorial ended up scattered across 4 countries and 3 continents. Nothing about that path involved Benin's consent. Every transaction after the burning was between people who had no right to sell her in the first place. This part of the story is actually moving, just not for Idia. Since 2021, momentum has genuinely shifted. Germany transferred ownership of over 1,000 Benin bronzes back to Nigeria in 2022, including the Linden Museum's mask. The Museum of Fine Arts, Boston returned pieces in 2025. In June 2025, the Netherlands handed over 119 Benin bronzes in a single ceremony in Lagos, one of the largest restitutions of its kind. Nigeria is building the Edo Museum of West African Art in Benin City, on the site of the original royal palace, specifically to receive them. The British Museum, holder of the largest single collection of Benin material in the world, has not returned its Idia mask. The museum points to the British Museum Act of 1963, which legally bars it from removing objects from its collection. A law Parliament could change and hasn't. The Metropolitan Museum's mask sits in New York without any active restitution process at all. So the count right now, in the summer of 2026, One mask home in spirit only through a recreation on a festival stage in 1977. 4 originals still abroad. 0 home, in fact. A face carved to declare one woman's power ended up as evidence in a 5-country argument about who gets to keep the past. Idia would probably find that fitting. She spent her life making sure powerful men couldn't just take what they wanted without a cost. The bill's still open. Subscribe. Next, a prophet from that same coastline, 200 years later, who looked at a European religion and said the founder of it was African. It got her burned alive. It also got her a following the missionaries could never stamp out.
Why tell me?